The rain came down in Alex's hand at 11:47 turning the dirt path the screen casting a cold blue glow across the tiny apartment as he sprinted toward the roar. He was half asleep, 12 years old, slumped over ribs showing under a threadbare shirt, trying to finish a presentation his only go back to the hut when the sky cracked open. His 6-year-old daughter, the flash flood, had finally drifted off after 3 bedtime stories. One moment the dry gully was glass of water. The next, a wall of brown water meant for his best friend, carrying branches, a dumb joke about the ice something that looked like a body, who'd shredded his last report in front of the entire department. Skidded to a stop at the edge. Wish I could melt that arm flailed once above the surface, then bet she'd short circuit. Without thinking, he hit send, he dove, chuckled, then froze. The current slapped him sideways. The name at the top his mouth with grit, but his fingers closed Evelyn around fabric. CEO. He kicked hard, the message sat toward a half-submerged tamarind tree. Read. His stomach dropped through the floor. The goat bleated somewhere 5 minutes later, 5 actual minutes, counted by the ticking wall clock. The woman doorbell rang, clutched his shoulder. Alex and together they clung to the trunk until the water dropped enough for Arjun to drag her onto the bank. There she stood. She lay gasping, Evelyn Winters, expensive black trench coat dusted with diamonds winking through the mud, heels that could slice glass, eyes like winter steel. Arjun didn't notice the diamonds. Mr. Harper, he noticed her eyes, voice low, dark, we need to talk about your then great creative outreach. Thank you. She rasped in English. The city lights blurred. He answered in the local dialect. Life flashed before him. Are you hurt? Fired? Broke? She laughed single once, dad, a cracked school fees, and fainted. The leaky faucet he still hadn't fixed. By the time the village men arrived, Evelyn with ropes and lanterns, Arjun had carried her on his back up the slope to the hut and shared with his "Show me the presentation you're up finishing." The goats bleated in the lean-to. If it's half as bold as your texting skills, I might not ruin you. The woman woke at dawn, accepted a steel tumbler of watery tea, and asked for her phone. It was gone, swept away with her driver and her Mercedes. She gave her name, Rhea Malhotra, and nothing else. Word spread faster than the flood. By noon, helicopters buzzed overhead. A black SUV churned up the muddy track. Rhea stood in the doorway of the hut, borrowed dupatta slipping off her shoulder, and told the suited men, "I'm fine. Tell Papa I'll call from the city." She looked at Arjun, who was trying to shrink behind his father. "This boy saved my life." The men offered money. Rhea waved it away. She crouched to Arjun's height. "What's your name?" "Arjun." "Arjun, you're very brave." She pressed something into his palm. A business card, thick cream stock, gold lettering. "If you ever need anything." Then she was gone, swallowed by the SUV, leaving only tire tracks and the faint scent of jasmine. Life returned to its grind. Arjun's father coughed blood into rags at night. The goats grew thin. The village school had no teacher past 5th grade. Arjun studied under a lantern, dreaming of the city lights he'd seen once on a grainy TV. The card stayed in a tin box under his cot, edges soft from handling. 10 years passed. Arjun, now 22, stood on a Mumbai pavement at 5 a.m., clutching a duffel and the same business card, now yellowed. His father had died the winter before, leaving debts and a last wish: go to the city, beta. Make something of yourself. The bus had spat him out at Dadar with 43 rupees and the card. Malhotra Industries rose like a glass mountain in Bandra Kurla complex. Arjun rehearsed his speech all morning, but the receptionist laughed him out before he reached the 10th word. Security escorted him to the gate. He sat on the curb, head in hands, until a shadow fell across him. "Still getting into trouble, village boy?" He looked up. Rhea Malhotra wore a charcoal suit, hair in a low knot, the same dark eyes. Recognition flickered. "Arjun?" She glanced at the card he still held. "You kept it." I need work, ma'am." "Any work?" She studied him for a long moment. "Come." The HR department wanted degrees. Rhea overrode them. Arjun started the next day as a peon in the basement mailroom, pushing carts of envelopes for 8,000 rupees a month. He rented a chawl room with 6 other boys, sent half his salary home to pay the moneylender, and studied accountancy at night on a borrowed phone. Rhea watched from a distance. She saw the way he organized the mailroom chaos into color-coded efficiency, the way he taught the elderly liftman to read the new digital panel, the way he never complained. 6 months in, she moved him to the logistics floor. Then to assistant manager. Then to her own strategy team. Each promotion came with a quiet note, "You earned this." Arjun learned the city's pulse, deadlines, boardrooms, the way a single decimal point could shift crores. He also learned loneliness. The Chal boys mocked his village accent. Girls at office parties laughed when he admitted he'd never tasted pizza. On Sundays he took the train to the sea, sat on the rocks, and spoke to the waves as if they were his father. One monsoon evening, the sky split again. Arjun was 25, newly promoted to VP of Rural Supply Chain, a department Ria had created for him. He stood on the office terrace watching the storm when his phone buzzed. "Unknown number, I'm outside your building. We need to talk." He ran down 17 flights because the lifts were jammed. Ria stood under the awning in a raincoat, hair plastered to her cheeks. "No driver, no security." "I messed up," she said without greeting. "My father's cutting me out of the will unless I marry the Rezada boy by next quarter. I'm 35, Arjun. I built half this company with my own hands, and they want to trade me like a merger." Lightning cracked. Arjun's heart thumped harder than the thunder. "What do you want from me?" She laughed, bitter. "A miracle." Then softer, "Walk with me." They walked through flooded streets, shoes squelching. She told him things she'd never told the board, how her mother died when she was 10, how her father rebuilt the empire on her childhood grief, how every suitor saw only the balance sheet. Arjun listened. When she finished, he said, "My father used to say the river looks strongest when it's about to change course." She stopped under a flickering street lamp. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying build your own current." The idea came in pieces. Ria owned 22% of Malhotra stock, enough to block the Rezada merger if she rallied minority shareholders. Arjun mapped the villages where the company sourced raw materials, calculated fair trade premiums, drafted a proposal for a foundation that would reinvest profits into rural education. They worked nights in her sea-facing apartment, takeout containers piling up, white boards crowding the living room. The board meeting was scheduled for Diwali Eve. Ria's father, Vikram Malhotra, sat at the head like a king, Rezada heir smirking beside him. Ria walked in wearing a simple white kurta, Arjun 2 steps behind with a single folder. Vikram didn't bother with pleasantries. "Votes at 4. Sign the papers, Ria." She laid the folder down. "Alternative proposal. We spin off the foundation as a public trust. I'll fund it with my shares. In return, I stay CEO, no marriage clause." Vikram's laugh boomed. "With what majority?" Arjun opened the folder. Inside, signed affidavits from every small shareholder Arjun had met over 3 years, farmers' co-ops, women's self-help groups, truckers' unions. Together they held 26%. With Ria's 22, the motion would pass. The room froze. Rezada turned purple. Vikram stared at his daughter as if seeing her for the first time. Ria's voice didn't waver. "You taught me numbers, Papa. Here they are." The vote took 12 minutes. The foundation was born. Rezada stormed out. Vikram stayed seated long after the room emptied, then said quietly, "You got this from the village boy?" Ria glanced at Arjun waiting by the door. "I got courage from him. The rest I learned from you." Months later, the first rural campus opened on the same land where Arjun's hut once stood. Solar panels glinted beside new classrooms. The inaugural plaque read, "In memory of those who taught us to swim against the current." Arjun stood on the tamarind tree hill, now a playground, watching children chase a football. Rhea joined him, no longer in suits but a cotton sari printed with tiny goats. "Think your father would approve?" she asked. Arjun smiled. "He'd say the river finally changed course." She slipped her hand into his. Below, a boy in a too-big uniform looked up and waved. Arjun waved back, eyes stinging. The flood that had nearly drowned them both had carried them, against all odds, to solid ground. And if you felt even a flicker of that hope, the kind that starts with a single act of kindness in a storm, hit the like button. Share this with someone who needs reminding that heroes don't always wear capes, sometimes they're barefoot kids with nothing but heart. Subscribe and ring the bell, because every week we bring you stories of real people turning impossible into impossible. The next flood might be yours to conquer. We'll be right here, cheering you on.